Alright, buddy, and we are live. So with that being said, welcome everyone to the post-Holiwood Nights trip Q&A live stream. I'm your host, Eric from Costa Rica, and during this stream, I'll be answering your questions related to the forts I visited, which include Holiwood Nights, Beech Bend, Kentucky Kingdom, and Six Flags of Texas. I'll also be answering any other Q&A questions related to news and other items, and I'll also be doing a quiz that was created for me to use by Frontier Coasters. So huge thanks to him for creating that, and I'll also be doing a buy or sell segment. That being said, we'll go into our begin Q&A. Pretty much ask anything you want, and a little bit delay and echo. That's not good. Thanks for letting me know. I'm trying to see. Alright, anyone else in the chat can let me know if there's any stream issues. It's doubling in an odd way. That's very strange. Okay. I don't believe it happened before. So I'm going to see if I can do something that seems to be an internet lag issue. Okay, it's not ideal. Okay, I'm gonna try to troubleshoot that. Give me a second. Let's see. Did anything change now, or is it still the same way? The internet's been a little finicky at the new place. That's been a concern, and it didn't seem to have last stream, but it's been a concern. No, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of audio issue. Let me know that still the same. That's not cool. It's like stuttered. That is very unusual. Okay. So that's good. Okay, so trying to see what I can do then for this. Maybe taking the quiz for now will help. I had an extra tab, so maybe that helped. I'm not sure. Are we still having news? Let me know in the chat. If the audio is still kind of come out weird. Yes, it's still have issues. Very. I'm looking through my settings, seeing if anything I do is weird. I don't though. It is on input, on output, but should not anything very weird. There's an clicking noise. You know what? It could be. I wouldn't think so, but the fans men with it. I'm gonna do something real quick. Be right back. Alright, so perhaps now it should be a little better. Let's see, maybe the odd click is gone. Maybe the fan was messing with something. It also be because is this thing in this spot? Let's see. Alright, let me know in the chat if the audio is good. At least we're having a good out. So still the same. Okay, what I think I'll do then is I'm going to I was sent a video. Let's see what it looks like. Thanks for holding out for me. This is or what's going on. Let's see. Concern, and it didn't seem to do a fast stream, but it's been a concern. Okay, yeah. So it's stuttering, and yeah. Okay. So hold on. I'm gonna try to do something. So I'm actually turn on the Wi-Fi in your house unneeded. That's gonna be a problem. My phone's off, but that's probably I'm probably not going to be able to do that right now. So, let's see. I'm try something. So give me a second. Oh, oh wait, that might be. All right, am I back now? Um, should be. All right. So testing again. Anything? Are we good now? Let me know. Or is there still no audio? Still has issues. That is very bizarre. Yeah, that is, clicking's still there. That is very unusual. Okay. The stuttering continues. Okay, so yeah, it has to be a Wi-Fi related issue is my guess. The only thing is the stuttering thing. I don't. It probably is more. Yeah, that's my. I'm hoping it's not a cable with the mic because that would be bad because I can't really do a whole lot to fix that right now. Come on. Alrighty, let's see. So, is it good now? Let me know. I know that the Blue Yeti, there's like a port thing, and the port can get kind of loose. I'm hoping that's not while it's happening. So, yeah, it's definitely the mic. Yikes, that is not good. Yeah, that might mean that the port got loose, which is like actually a big problem if that's the case. Yikes. I'm not sure how that happened. I've had this thing for a few years. That is not ideal. Okay, so I'm trying to think of what exactly I can do. I do have my headphone mic. The audio is going to be way worse on that, but it probably won't have the clicking issue. So I might roll with that. It's not ideal, but that is pretty. I'll back up. Does that help anything? Is that helping with anything? Let me see if the settings got messed with. No, they're still good. So I don't really know what the issue is. Alrighty, so still testing with the audio. Is it still having issues, or are we good? Because if it's still having issues, what I might end up doing is I might like just transfer to a headphone, and that's the case. I'm gonna have to look into the mic and see if it's a salvageable issue. If not, I may have to get a new one. One was not ideal. Yikes. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just go to the headphones. The mic this is gonna be bad, but it's not the stutter probably. So we're gonna go with that. yeah. We're gonna the audio's gonna not be very good, fortunately. But that's what we're rolling with. So I'm gonna disconnect. Well, now I just need to make sure if the audio is the right one. Let's see. Hopefully it is. It might be doing the Mac one. So, yeah. So let's see if that worked any better. Alrighty, let me know if the audio at least is not stuttering. Like I said, the audio quality is going to be way worse. This is not something. It's very loud now. I mean, but the audio is very distorted. Really? Man, this is not ideal. Okay. This is crazy. I've never had it like this in a stream before, so that is certainly not ideal. Let's see. Oh my, that's bad. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what the issue is, so I'm not really sure what to do because the audio there is like really bad. Oh wait. Well, wait, now it's good? Wait, I'm confused. So, keep the mic on the desk. What? Oh, like the headphone thing? Okay, so hold on. I just switched it to the max speakers. So it's just awful when it's like really close. Okay, so... Oh wait, it sounds good now. Well, now I'm just doing the Mac speakers, which is probably terrible, but it might be what we're going with. Okay, then we're just gonna go with that. I'm gonna have to look into the mic issue. That's actually very unfortunate. I mean, I've had it for quite a few years. I'm not... Something must have hit it wrong or something. I probably should have unplugged it. I'm imagine somehow the cable got yanked some way somehow, and that's probably what happened there. But at least for this stream, this will work. So thank you all for helping me get through that. And with that being said, we can go through beginning Q&A. And really at this point, you can just ask me questions about anything. It can relate to the trip. I originally was going to kind of segment it. But honestly, I think with kind of the issues I've kind of had getting the stream set up, not even just today, but like with previous days, I'm just more doing that. It also could be a cable issue. Yeah, that's a lot more fixable than I just need to find. I don't think I have another one that has the correct USB for the mic, at least on me, that I can find very conveniently right now. But I will definitely look into that. So finding a better cable, because yeah, if that's the issue, then that's really not that big of a deal. So not all doom and gloom. But yeah, I need to scoot up a bit now. Okay, first question. Have you been on a trimmed voyage? Yes. So I went to Holiday World last year when it wasn't Holiwood Nights. So I do have the entire park really to compare before and after Holiwood Nights, which I'm actually very happy I did it that way. Because now, having been to Holiwood Nights, it would be very difficult to visit the park on a regular day, at least in my opinion. But having done it before, that really helps. Voyage was already my number one coaster based off the summer July rides I had back last year, and it had remained my number one since. So going in, I was pretty excited for the trimless rides, and I mean, to say they lived up to the hype would be understating it. I was completely stunned. So the first night for Holiwood Nights, I rode Voyage. It wasn't even completely dark yet. It wasn't even running at its best, but I rode it, and it was still relatively dark, and it was running fantastic. If you've heard on social media, it was running amazing this year. But anyways, after I got off the ride, I was literally had to I couldn't ride anything for like another 10-15 minutes because I was like in complete shock of how a ride could be as insane as Trimless Voyage. So I was literally like speechless for, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes, and that's not even exaggerating. I just stood back, looked at Voyage from outside of the entrance in complete disbelief. I was it was a otherworldly experience, really, and it only got better as the night went on. And I guess I can speak on the differences between the two. Obviously, when you're talking just about trimless, not necessarily like it being in the dark, because of course it being in the dark definitely helps the ride, but it being trimless, the I do think the second half feels significantly faster and crazier. That also, like I said, could be attributed to it being night more than it being trimless, but I'm sure it being trimless helps quite a bit. And that triple down is flat out insane without the trims. I mean, especially the last drop, it is ridiculous. But the whole thing just absolutely delivers when it is trimmed. The last drop always delivers, but the first two parts of the triple down are a little weak. But when it's trimless, that is one of the highlight moments of the ride, and honestly, one of my favorite elements on any coaster. So it was absolutely fantastic. Felt way more out of control than the ride already did. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And of course, it being at night, fortunately, I was able to get both a front row and back row ride. I got, I believe it was 10 total Voyage trimless rides throughout the 2 nights I was there. And I did prefer the back row, but the front row was amazing. I mean, especially because it was quite dark by the time I got it. I mean, the big drops at the beginning and the big hills, like it looked like you were plunging into like an empty void. It was like that insane. So just like an empty void of nothing. So and then like you couldn't really anticipate what was coming because the coaster was coming so fast and it was like so dark, especially in the tunnels. So it was absolutely phenomenal. So I will give the front row credit. Also, sensation of speed was great, but the back row, the airtime's just on a different level. And I mean, you are just really being thrown around, so through the hills and through the elements. So I would still prefer the back row, but front row is definitely worth checking out at night. I mean, you'll be waiting a while for both, but they're both worth it to do once. Honestly, outside of that, you can get random row rides. I did get a few of those, and they're still fantastic. So if you want to get a bunch of rides in on Trimless Voyage, just go in like middle rows and stuff, and it'll still be fantastic. I was just a little more picky, so that's why I got a little. There's some people who got an insane amount of rides, and I was a little more picky, but I think that's I thought that it was still fantastic in the other rows. Like I said, I'm just really picky with rows, so 10 trimless rides is nothing to scoff at, though. That's a pretty good total, especially considering I got plenty of rides also on Raven and Legend, which were also fantastic. So yeah. Alrighty, next question. Also, thank you, Civilian Satellite, for joining. But happy to see you here for sure, and happy to have come back from my trip, of course. What new ride do I think Holiday World is teasing? So we actually kind of already know this. Now some people are debating whether the leaked ride is for the Pilgrim's Plunge plot or the Rapids spot, because the Rapids was announced to be closing for good just a few days ago. If you don't know, I think it was called Raging Rapids, something like that. That is defunct. They have announced that the Rapids at Holiday World will be closing for good. However, there was a leaked ride that came out. So basically, a shipment for a Vekoma family boomerang is out there. It was shipped to Holiday World. You can find it on Reddit, and I believe it was found on some sort of shipping website. There is like a link to it somewhere out there. But a Vekoma family boomerang is coming to Holiday World. It's already been leaked, and I expect that's going to be where the Pilgrim's Plunge plot of land is where I think that coaster will go. So I believe that is the what's going to be going in that plot of land, which I think it's a good fit. They really needed a family coaster that wasn't a kiddie coaster, so I understand why they went with that. If that ultimately is what goes in that spot, I very much believe it is, and I mean, I think it's a good fit. Oh, you were at Holiwood Nights. Holiwood Nights, nice. I think I mentioned quite a bit on the channel, and especially on Instagram, that I was there. So I was gonna be there. I wish I could have said hello to you. I wasn't aware you were going, but it was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed your time there, and I certainly enjoyed mine. So yeah, it was an absolute blast. And shout out again. I saw Coaster Evan. I'm sure. Of course, if you're a consistent viewer, you'll know he's been in chat a lot of times. I saw him there again. I saw Sean from Dr. Coaster, who I saw from Fun Spot, along with a lot of other enthusiasts. Mark from Coaster Dash, I saw and talked to. And so it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of people that I talked to on the first night. I was like kind of just single riding, hopping from ride to ride. And I go on Instagram, I'm like, oh, I actually follow that person. I didn't realize that because they didn't necessarily show their face that much, or I didn't pay that much attention. I'm like, hey, I saw you on we talked on the Raven or on Legend. So yeah, that was pretty fun. It was a great event overall. Huge props to Holiday World. I mean, they are really what makes that event so special. The staff and the friendliness of everybody there is absolutely amazing. And I can't recommend the event enough for anyone who wants to go. And I know the whole attendance cap thing has been a little controversial. I do think it is good for the event that they do have an attendance cap. I'm pretty sure they increased it from last year. That's just kind of what I had heard from other things. We don't have an official number, but that's apparently kind of what it felt like. But you could still get in plenty of rides on Voyage, Raven, Legend, and all the other rides open during ERT. So it was absolutely fantastic. How was Lil Phantom's California cousin? So if you don't follow me on Instagram, I actually did ride a coaster today. I went to my local amusement park, Playland Fresno. I had not been there since I was a toddler. I had never gotten the coaster credit, and they have a Lil Phantom clone at that park. So I went there today with my brother, and I got the credit. So because the park was officially reopening for the first time today in 3 years, and the new operators actually allow adults to ride, which the previous ones didn't. So took the opportunity to ride it. This was my first Molina and Sons coaster, and I'm not gonna lie, it rode really weirdly. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but the coaster almost felt like it had square wheels. It just didn't quite track right. It wasn't like terrible or anything like that. It was just very odd. And as for the second hill had like a little bit of air, but that was like about it. It didn't really stand out that much, I'm sorry to say. Like, I know like Lil Phantom's like, you know, the like best coaster of all time and the big meme and everything. But I'm sorry to say, I mean, I hope Lil Phantom runs better than this coaster does, but I was not super impressed with this specific coaster. But it was still fun and interesting to check out, and also to visit a park that I hadn't been to in, I mean, God knows how long. So that was fun to do. Was Gobbler's Getaway trimless too? Unfortunately, no. I don't even. The first night of ERT, it wasn't even open, which I thought was a little strange. But I did get 2 rides on it. It's a fun shooting ride. I wouldn't say it's like anything too crazy. I totally forgot how the ending went. I rode it last time, but I only rode it once. I forgot about the ending, but if you've ever seen the animated movie Freebirds, I'm pretty sure the writers ripped off this ride. Someone wrote it and decided to run away with it in terms of like the story or the ending of this ride for their concept, sort of, for the Freebirds animated movie. But yeah, fun ride for sure. With Holiday World's Rapids going, do I think we could see a slight decline in Rapids rides, but not an extreme extent? I mean, they're being removed left and right pretty much, I kind of feel like. So I expect we're going to see more of that. I know that there's been a few that have been recently opened. The one at SeaWorld Orlando, Infinity Falls, and then whatever the one at Silver Dollar City is called. Is it like Mystic River Falls, something like that? I know there's like some modern ones being built, but there's a lot of ones kind of dying, so I think that'll kind of continue. They just seem to be a nightmare to maintain, and I know that I do wonder if potentially what happened with the Adventureland one, even though that was pretty much pure like sort of negligence for why that accident happened, if that's something that's kind of looming in the minds of some parks. So that might be something going on, but I mean, that part is complete speculation. But we do know that they are just very expensive to maintain. So SeaWorld San Antonio is doing a log flume, but that's like, I mean, log flumes are also kind of same way, but I feel like we're getting a lot. I feel like those are a little more reasonable to keep around, and I do think there's some cool stuff we could see with future ones. I think Rapids rides, I don't know. I've always preferred log flumes to Rapids rides personally, just in general. That's not to say there aren't some great Rapids rides. I love Grizzly River Run at Disney California Adventure, but I think in general, I prefer log rides, and honestly, I think a lot of people are kind of the same. So, yeah. You just joined the chat. Strong Arm 11. Home park is Busch Gardens, Tampa. Great home park to have. And favorite coaster is Iron Gwazi. Yes, Holiday World, they announced on Twitter a few days ago with that they are closing the Rapids ride. And also, it got leaked, I think, the day after they announced that they were they're getting a Vekoma family boomerang because of the shipping leaks. So, but that's probably going in the Pilgrim's Plunge Plot of Land. Very, very complicated, very weird situation. But yeah. Which types of rides are most endangered of being removed from theme parks? I mean, I think that's definitely one that there's definitely some rides that are on their way out. I think Rapids is honestly a pretty good answer. I think we've been seeing a lot of Rapids kind of biting the dust. I mean also, that is a good question. Are there like a certain type of coaster that we could be like coaster models that we're seeing? Off the top of my head, that's just a question I was not prepared to get right now. But like we were talking about Rapids, so it's kind of a cop-out answer. But I do kind of feel like that is one of those ones that is kind of being phased out in a way. I still think there will be a few new ones getting built, and I'm sure some parks will keep them around because they're good water rides. Shoot the Chutes is a good one. Yep, those are dying. Those are going left and right. that one actually even more so. So that's a great answer there. I just thought Philip mentioned that. But yeah, so go-karts, that's another one. Yep. But those are kind of upcharged, so I almost view that in a different light. You could also argue like even sky coasters and stuff kind of goes along with that because we've seen quite a few parks remove those. So, but once again, that does make sense. Slingshots, yep. Up charges in general kind of makes sense. But I'm gonna move on to the next question. Okay, so this did change. I'm happy this got brought up. Legend or Raven? So I do prefer Legend. Now, before the trip, and for those who watched like my channel before, you would know I had a slight preference to Raven based off my first Holiday World visit. But after the night rides and after a ton more rides on both of them, I think in total I had to have like 13 between the 2 days I was at Holiday World for both. And I definitely am going to say Legend is better at this point, especially at night. I mean, that ride just goes insane. You really have to appreciate the laterals that ride has, and just how insane it is, especially at night. But it also has some really good airtime moments as well. So obviously, I think Raven's stronger in the airtime department. In that final twister section, I know a lot of people were saying it was getting rough this year, and I do agree, definitely. But it still goes super hard, especially when the ride is warmed up. That's a fantastic section. So both rides are amazing. Both coasters are in my top 5 wooden coasters overall for a reason, but I do prefer Legend at this point. So, and actually that was an inaccurate statement. I think Raven is actually 6 in my wooden coasters. So just make that top 6. They're not in my, I guess, yeah, I forgot about one for a second. So yeah, but I do prefer Legend. I think it'll be more like the smaller ones. I don't think Holiday World's gonna get something custom. It seems unlikely, but I mean, I'd be happy if they did. I don't think it's gonna be paired with an STC, but if it was, I mean, that would be awesome. I'd be super down for that, for sure, because that'd be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. At the park we're talking about with a few bird themed coasters, but anyways, yeah, no, that definitely would be a good idea. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think they definitely are just looking for that family coaster. So yeah, okay, so oh boy, yeah, Millennium Flyers easily. I finally did the Timberliners. What's interesting was I heard a lot of trash talking on the Timberliners at Holiwood Nights. I guess a lot of people had ridden Hades 360 and they just thought it didn't ride very well. And you know, those trains were going to be put on Voyage, and I was able to experience it on Kentucky Flyer. I think it's a good train for the family coasters, but I'll just say straight off the bat, I'm actually happy that they kept the PTCs for Voyage. The Timberliner trains are like comfortable, but there's something really weird to like I don't like how the restraint is like a open close like that way. It's very weird. And like on a family wooden coaster, it's fine. They're comfortable trains. And I also think that, I don't know, there's like some people were complaining about how they kind of ride weird. I think they were fine on a family woody, but I kind of had a hard time visualizing and thinking about how would this run on like a Hades 360 or like the big gravity group coasters in China. It's very odd. So yeah, that is I like I said, Millennium Flyers definitely are better. Timberliners, that was an interesting experience. I did like Kentucky Flyer overall, but yeah, I would be happy if we don't see those on like bigger wooden coasters, to be honest. I just, they are pretty weird. So, that was certainly interesting. And I don't think we actually talked about that, which was funny. Me and Jace talked ahead of time. I don't think Timberliners came up, interestingly enough, when we talked about that. So that was a good question. Yes, my dad did get a ticket to the event. Anyone on Instagram, I was getting. That's the other thing at Holiwood Nights. A lot of people, like, they knew I was trying to get a ticket for my dad, so a lot of them were asking about it. I can't go into the full story of how like it transpired, but yes, we were able to get one. Thanks to a generous enthusiast. The first night he wasn't able to go, but he was able to go the second night. It kind of worked out that way. But yes, that was able to work out. He was able to ride Trimless Voyage. He was able to ride the coasters at night. It was a great time. We both had a great time. So thank you for asking. Which coaster do I think should have night rides the most? Like, I need like a question, like a clarification on this, because are you saying like out of the coasters that I rode, or like just in general? Because I'm a little confused on what you're asking exactly. Like, if you're asking which of the Holiday World coasters like needs night rides the most, I am going to say Voyage, because I think that thing is just somehow on a different level compared to during the day. It's unfortunate that ride, it's so hard to get night rides on. You can get them outside of Holiwood Nights, but like you'd have to visit in like October or something like that, from my understanding. If you're talking about coasters where it's impossible, I honestly don't know what that list would look like. I know there's some parks that aren't open late enough, so it's literally impossible to get some night rides on some coasters. But I think most of the parks I've been to, you would have a pretty, there's opportunities out there to get them, even if they're difficult. So I would I guess that's my way of answering that question. How about no to this question? So Thunderbird, for anyone who's been watching the channel, I think last time I don't think I caught a ton of flack for this, but I think people were surprised. I came out and said that I didn't think Thunderbird was the best B&M wing. And I know that's like a pretty unpopular opinion, because mostly everyone has that as unanimous. I've only ridden 3. Like, I prefer it to Wild Eagle, but it's been below Gatekeeper for me. And my rides in the first visit I had were kind of weak, to be honest. But I rode it on the right side, and that was definitely a lot better. I could definitely see why people would have it as their favorite wing, and like I could see the argument there for sure. It definitely had a definitely more of an aggressiveness and bite to it compared to the other wing coasters I've done. But I don't know, it's just it's not the longest ride in the world. It really only utilizes the wing coaster like gimmick like once. Granted, like for a really cool ending. And I will say, during Holiwood Nights, I only rode Thunderbird, I think once, but I will say that final Heartline roll is actually pretty incredible at night. So, because it's just, you can't really see much. So you couldn't really see where it ended. So it was very, very interesting. So it's still not my favorite wing, but it's a great ride. And I know there were some people there that it was their favorite ride at the park. I mean, I'm not quite there, but I mean, I can in some ways respect the appreciation and love that Thunderbird gets. So it did redeem itself somewhat for me. So I will say that. I've never been to Universal Studios Florida or Islands of Adventure, so unfortunately I can't really answer that question. Never been to Florida, unfortunately. I'm hoping to get down there at some point in the future, relatively soon, hopefully, but we'll see. That just, I mean, there's nothing planned there. It's just, it would be nice. Do I think Indiana Beach will do their own version of Holiwood Nights? Probably not. I don't really. There's nothing there that seems to indicate that they would do that. I mean, I guess they're in Indiana, so that's like something, but I wouldn't know enough about that park to know if that would be something they'd legitimately consider. So I would not know that. With T3 closing, an STC would be an amazing choice for the area, but I agree that it'll probably be a smaller one. Yeah, I don't think that an STC is going there. For Holiday World. Oh, okay. Because I know, yes, for Holiday World, that makes sense. Yeah. Especially, you're right, because Kentucky Kingdom, that's like the closest park, and now they don't even have a suspended coaster, but which would make it a great opportunity for Holiday World to get one. But yeah, for a second I read it as you were suggesting an STC replace T3, which I've seen the idea get thrown out there. I don't think that's what's ultimately going to happen, but I think a T3 replacement, I think we're at least like 2 years away from seeing that, because that ride, there's no sign of demolition or anything, so it's not being replaced next year, I don't think. And I imagine maybe if they get a replacement for it, maybe 2025, but we'll wait and see on that. I did write Judge Roy's Scream. I don't have a very high opinion on it. I guess, it'd be nice if Over Texas offered night rides on it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a very high opinion of that ride. But I guess it would be nice. I mean, I guess it's kind of a mean thing to say, but yeah, I did not love that ride. I'm just gonna say that. That did not impress me at all. I got a front row ride, and I'm actually happy that I got a front row ride on it, because I imagined the back row would have been horrendous because it was already pretty shaky, pretty rough in the front. I can't really imagine what it would have been like further back. That was, yeah, not impressed with that ride. Fantasia Land is impossible to get night rides, but that's why you go to their winter event. And we considered it. Instead, we were considering going to Germany instead of Spain when I did do that, and we would have went there for that actually, but that didn't end up happening. But man, I mean, it's just gonna be super cold though. So yeah. Let's see. Speaking of suspended coasters, would I like seeing one from RMC? I mean, if they have a concept for it, and Joe Draves, the layout designer, I believe, has he designed some suspended family coasters before? I think he has, but obviously a true thrilling invert would definitely be a step up. I would definitely be curious to see what he could do with it. I don't know how they would go about doing that in terms of what the track would look like, but I would certainly be curious. I think if they were willing to do it, I definitely would be interested in what RMC could put out for a suspended coaster. So Raptor track, the single rail, yeah, that could certainly work. Yeah, so if they were willing, I definitely would be really curious, especially if they could go to a Raptor or single rail track for that. I can't even imagine. Those would be super intense. Those would probably be insane. Um, and they could probably even throw in some airtime moments on it. So that would be very interesting. My new mind blower is going to get brought up. I mean, I don't even know what more needs to be said about that. Um, I'll get back to that in a second. Do I think the SLC layout could be replicated using the STC trains and track? Yeah, I think so. There's nothing really in there that seems to like suggest like the elements are like undoable. I'm pretty sure, yeah, you could literally build like about the same layout with an STC and that could exist. I don't think they're gonna do that, but I'm sure if like a park requested, I'm sure they could accommodate that. So yeah, I think that would be possible. And I mean, it would be interesting to see for sure, but I know Great Nor'easter kind of exists, so that might be good enough to where maybe we don't need to see something like that. But Mind Blower, I mean, of course, I have not written it, but man, you look at the pictures and you look at the reviews and stuff for Mind Blower. Man, I don't know how much those of you who aren't on Instagram or Reddit know about this Mind Blower disaster. But the RMC track thing did not work very well, it seems. If you look at pictures, there's literally like a gap in the track between the wooden and the RMC track. I feel kind of bad, like kind of like talking so bad on RMC for this thing, but man, it is I mean, and then a decent amount of people who've ridden it say the transitions from wood to steel are the roughest parts of the ride, and some have even claimed it's rougher than anything that was there before. So I mean, at this point, they might as well just fully retrack it with RMC track. I mean, it's a very interesting situation because I don't know where you go from here in terms of what you're gonna do, because you can't have the ride run as is for that long. I mean, with the jankiness that it's at right now, there's just no way. I mean, that might just be a situation where they just retrack the entire thing, because that looked so bad. I mean, I was stunned. I really was. That definitely was like a moment where you kind of realize Mind Blower is just cursed. I really don't know if there's anything more that can be said. I mean, yeah, that's tough. And for RMC, I mean, this is their first RMC 208 retrack project outside of Silverwood, and this is not a good start. For sure. I mean, I know GCI Titan Track, there's been a few issues here and there, but those seem to be mostly worked out, and it seems to be a very good product for what parks want. But the Mind Blower thing is just like, man, I mean, first thing I thought of when I saw that is, I mean, I'm like, if you were going to go the seal route, you should have just gotten Titan Track. I'm a little biased there, but with saying that, but I mean, I think it's pretty much just true. I don't really think there's a whole lot more that needs to be said. You can look up reviews online and everything. Most of them are not very good in terms of Mind Blower with the RMC track. And it's not even for the reason you would have expected, because I know a lot of people have been like, oh, it's because now they put steel track on it. No, it's because the transitions are ridiculously rough. And I mean, the track work is just so janky. So, yep, that's Mind Blower. Was there anything that surprised me about Holiwood Nights, either positively or negatively? That is a great question. So the food situation was interesting, because I was like for some reason I was under the impression that we were gonna like eat at the specific restaurants. Very weird thing to bring up, but we actually ended up getting these larger areas, which made a lot more sense because I was kind of like, man, it was going to be packed in like the buildings. So I'm happy that things were like relatively spread out and everything, and the food was really good, I gotta say. I mean, and they varied it too. There were like, there was the snacks, there was like burgers on the first day. The Thanksgiving meal on the second night was fantastic. Especially like they had like some sort of fudge also, which I think they probably sell it, but I hadn't seen it anywhere. That was so good. So I definitely was really impressed with that for sure. So that was one thing there. The overall friendliness, just in general, of like the staff and the write-ups and everything, was also, especially on Voyage, and like the excitement even from like the staff was also something that surprised me a little bit. Just because the event this year was fantastic, but there's been previous years where things have gone sort of awry for various reasons. So it's great to see that there's still that enthusiasm there and excitement. And then also the excitement and like the hype level in the Voyage station during the second night of Holiwood Nights was something very special. Like people, they were playing the song "Don't Sail Away" and everyone was like singing to it. It was like crazy high energy, but everyone was having a good time and everyone knew why they were there. So it was amazing. Those were some things that really impressed me. I honestly don't really have a whole lot negative to say. I mean, I'm like trying to think of something to like I just I really I mean, yeah. And oh, the operations were fantastic. Yes. Yes, that was that was amazing. They were getting the trains out so fast. I kind of had heard about that, but seeing it happen in person, they were really trying. So it was fantastic. Like I said, cannot thank Holiday World enough for that. For sure, that was fantastic. Let's see what else we have here. Alrighty, so I guess I'll just switch the banners. So I guess we've already had a lot of Holiday Worlds and Holiwood Nights Q&A. You can ask questions outside of it, but I'll try to, if you have any Holiday World questions or Holiwood Nights questions, I guess this specifically would especially be a good time to ask, but you can ask about anything. Like I said, I was originally going to segment this, but I'm kind of like, I mean, not really necessary, but I'll go through the questions still. So speaking of steel track on wooden coasters, how did I like Kentucky Rumbler? So first and foremost, Kentucky Rumbler was actually really good. I questioned on, I'll get to the Titan track in a bit because that's like it's a little bit of a different conversation. It certainly was interesting to try it out, and I think it has some benefits, and it benefited the ride, but I also have some concerns. So, but I can see the where the excitement and where the potential, like what's the upside of the Titan track. So I'll say that. But as for Kentucky Rumbler itself, so a lot of people don't know this. I actually had to reach out to Skyline to confirm I wasn't crazy, because everyone's just talking about the new Titan track that was on Kentucky Rumbler. But there's also, when I was there's a lot of fresh new wooden track. And I was like, by chance, was there like new wooden track that was put on this year outside of Titan track? And yes, they put new wooden track, GCI did, in different sections of Kentucky Rumbler. So the coaster is running like really well this year. I think if more people went out and rode it, I think this idea that it's like a bottom to like low middle tier GCI coaster would go out the window. It was really good, especially towards the front. The airtime was incredibly strong for GCI standards. The ride's pacing was excellent from beginning to end, and I know that like toward the end it had kind of died in the past, but I think all the track work and all the stuff they put into the ride this off season, or I guess technically this season, because that's when they were doing some of the work, I think it really benefited the ride. So, and the ride's like, like I had heard that the ride was really rough. This year, no, it is like, it may have very well been the outside of Kentucky Flyer, of course, the smoothest wooden coaster of the bunch. Honestly, of all the ones I rode during this trip, it was probably the smoothest one outside of Kentucky Flyer. They did a phenomenal job with, I mean, it still has some shake to it. It's not like butter smooth, but it is not a problem. I rode it 8 times within like a few hours, no problem. And we were getting also full trains on it, which apparently is pretty unusual. But that certainly helped. And it was really good. It really impressed me. Good laterals. And like I said, the airtime strength is really what kind of surprised me, for sure. And then, like I said, the pacing was also quite good. But as for the Titan track itself, so it's hard for me to say, but I kind of feel like the element they put the Titan track on was kind of a dud element. It was this kind of turnaround. There wasn't really too many or too much laterals there. I don't know if there probably really wasn't, even when it had the wooden track. So they probably put it in a section mostly where it was sort of a dud element. So I can't really speak much in terms of like the individual element that the Titan track was put on really didn't do anything that crazy. The Titan track itself was very interesting. It was extremely smooth. It like did its job, but it kind of has this weird texture to it. I don't know how to describe it. Like I said, it's very smooth, but it doesn't feel like a traditional like steel coaster, but it kind of feels a little different from like even an RMC. Very weird, but it almost kind of felt like it was trying to sort of be like a wooden coaster. Like it was smooth, but there was like a little, I don't know what you could say. Like there was some texture there that was a little odd. I didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was like it was very interesting. But I mean, it still feels very different and honestly a little jarring from the, not little, very jarring from the wooden track. But the benefit of the Titan track is I think it really helped out the pacing. I've heard reviews from Boulder Dash this year, and I've heard the Titan track, even though it was only put in like I think a few sections, that it's allowing the ride to run a lot better. And I think for Kentucky Rumbler, it's also doing that. It's helping out with the pacing. So I think there's some good there. I just get a little concerned for like a ride like Wildcat at Lake Compounds. I mean, I know it wasn't good to begin with, but a full wooden coaster getting completely Titan tracked without changing the layout, I don't know that I'm like super excited for those kinds of projects. But I'm excited for if they get an opportunity to do some ground up projects. And, you know, I know some wooden coasters, it's like they've tried to retrack sections and it's just like the area is too problematic. I think for those kinds of sections, putting Titan track is actually a decent idea. It just kind of saves the park money. It keeps the coaster operating, and it can even help out with the pacing a little bit. It's just going overboard with the Titan track and putting it on a ton of sections. That's where you kind of lose me a little bit. So I do think that that pretty much sums up my thoughts on the Titan track. So that was pretty much that there. Back row was better for Voyage at Night, but front row is definitely worth doing. I would try out both. I know that there was a decent amount of people who said front row was the best. I can't even argue with it. I can totally see why you would think the front row is the best. The sensation of speed is the best. I mean, having of course, the best views. even though you can't really see much, which actually makes it even more spooky, and everything. So it is pretty sick. So I prefer the back row, but not as much as I would have not by as much as I would have expected. So that was certainly a surprise. Enthusiast ambassadors heading out, thank you for checking out the stream and helping me through the troubles we had earlier. Really appreciate that. And I'll see you next time. Also, for those of you in chat who haven't checked out Enthusiast Roundtable, the ambassador recently restarted the podcast, and there's 4 episodes out now, I believe. So make sure to check those out. If you like Coaster Time and the guest streams, you're probably gonna like those. So make sure to check out his channel, Enthusiast Roundtable, right there. New channel. Make sure to check that out. So yeah, there you go. Let's see what else we have. I did not ride Scat 2 at Beech Bend. It was actually operating, which it doesn't always do. But and I actually was going to ride it at a point, but that was when the ride was down. There was like a ride attendant there, and I was like, oh, I think it's open. It's just no one wants to ride it. And we went over, and it's like, oh no, we're waiting for a thing. And then they got they needed to get a new, I think it was a drive tire, and they got it. So it was running later. But I just was like, you know what? It's just like, I've heard it's like super intense. I don't know if I'm ready for it. And actually, Airtime Monkey on Instagram was at Beech Bend that day. And I was talking to him for a little bit, and he rode it, and it made him sick. So I'm actually very thankful that I didn't do that. Because it very well could have limited my other rides, which for a park I'm probably not visiting again would have been pretty bad. Nothing against Beech Bend, it's just out of the way and a little more expensive for like my liking personally. But I mean, for anyone who like is going to Holiday World and you want to go like out of your way, I do think it is worth it. Kentucky, at least in the current state that it's in, Kentucky Rumbler is really good. I think if more people went out to ride it this year, you would see a vastly different consensus on that ride. And also, just to make some Apocalypse fans mad, I will say I do rank Kentucky Rumbler over Apocalypse quite easily. But yeah, I'll just mention that one. I guess we're getting Beech Bend questions, so I'll just switch to that. I think we got a lot of Holiwood Nights questions, so I'll just switch to that. You can ask any questions, really. I had this thing set up, so whatever it is. But anyways, you had amazing, right? Yeah, I remember I watched the vlog you did. The train was screeching on the pre-lift, so maintenance closed the ride, greased the truck and train, and then it was flying the rest of the day. Yeah, you had a pretty high opinion on it, as I recall as well. So I'll admit your review and your video did actually encourage me a little bit. I was like, you know what? I think I will check this ride out, and I'm very glad I did. Especially like I think this year, like I said, in its current condition, is going to be one of the best times to ride it for anyone who is nearby or has the opportunity. I'm not saying this is like some insanely elite wooden coaster or anything. I don't want to get that up, like that sort of hype, but it is in my top 40 coasters out of 159 as of today. It is my number 10 wooden coaster, and it was really good. So like I said, make sure to check it out. And it was super re-rideable in its current condition, which I know like from reviews from past years that like doesn't make sense, but they did a lot of work on that ride. It was not just a Titan track. So I figured I should mention that in this stream, because a lot of people just think they put Titan track on it. They did a lot more than that. So props to Beech Bend and GCI for doing some good work there. Did I ride the Wild Mouse? I did. I got all the credits at Beech Bend. I rode my first SBF spinner. I'm not gonna lie, I debated putting the SBF spinner over the Wild Mouse in my rankings. I didn't quite do it, but I was close. This Wild Mouse, it's a Zamperla spinning Wild Mouse. The least spinning coaster I've ever ridden. And I supposedly rode in the Magic Train or Magic Car, which was the red one. That's what the ride-op said. I asked them, and I theoretically had an off-balance car, but it did not spin much, and it was brake to death. There's still some decent drops in there, and there's that like kind of drop toward the end where you can face either backwards or sideways, and I kind of got like sort of a backward sideways. So there's still a little bit of fun moments there, but yeah, it was very weak. Definitely, probably the weakest spinning coaster I've ridden besides the SBF spinner. Even more so, like maybe not quite that low, but definitely kind of around there. And one of the weaker Wild Mice I've ridden for sure. Also, Sidewinder Safari like ran circles around this thing, so yeah, that was not a great ride. But I did like the Larson Drop Tower. I did do that. That was my first Larson Drop Tower. I also did the one at Kentucky Kingdom because I like that ride model so much. That drop tower model is awesome. You can't see the drop coming like at all. So that is a fantastic drop tower model. And then the Haunted House was actually, it was entertaining. Was it really scary? Not really. But there's actually some animatronics that had like some cool designs and were like way better quality than you would have expected. And it was actually pretty cool. So I would also recommend that ride if you go. If you're willing to take it, the Scat 2, there's very few of them out there. You just got to be a little careful if you do that ride. So, and I, of course, didn't do it, but it is a rare ride. So I will mention that. Did I ride the Power Surge or was that down? Power Surge, I don't know. Like, are you referring to at Six Flags Over Texas? I didn't have a long day at Six Flags Over Texas. I only rode 8 of the coasters because we kind of got stormed out, unfortunately. But yeah, although wait, Power Surge is that it says Fiesta Texas. Oh, at Beech Bend. No, I did not ride Power Surge at Beech Bend. I didn't even see it there. It says the ride's no longer open. I think that actually may have been removed. I did not see that ride at all. And I remember seeing it in like the I think that ride's gone. Like I think it's like flat out gone. Unfortunately. Because I did not see that ride like at all. And I don't see anything of it on like the website or anything. Because I looked at the website to see what rides there were. I don't think that one was on there. I think it's flat out gone. So I did not do that ride, unfortunately. What did I like most about Beech Bend? The best thing I can say about it is it had Kentucky Rumbler. Honestly, it's just kind of like it didn't really stand out that much. There were some weird things. I saw in Civilian Satellites vlog that they sell aspirin and it's under the snack sign, and I did see it there and get a picture, and I did see the massive condiment sign. So there's some weird stuff with the park. That in Kentucky Rumbler actually has like a pretty nice gift shop and cafe. Also with some interesting merch choices. If you've been to the store, there's a certain shirt that I won't say here, but mention it here. But if you've seen it, you'll know what it is. That is a little interesting that they have it around. It's fine. Like I think like the rides seem to be mostly in pretty good shape. It seems to be pretty decently like run. Like yes, there were some rides that were down, but like I think almost everything was like open at least at some point. So like there were some rides that were down for certain portions, but a lot of the rides that I had heard were like usually down were like open. Even the laser tag thing actually was open, which I didn't have time to check out, and apparently it wasn't running the best because there's only three things working. But it seemed like mostly everything was operational at some point. So like for what it was solid. It's just a little expensive for my liking. And it is basically just kind of like it is basically kind of like a permanent fairground, like a glorified permanent fairground with like a big wooden coaster. But I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. It just, it's not like anything too crazy. Obviously, it's not like a destination park, but obviously you don't go in with that expectation. Like I think it was like it was good for what it was. I can't really say a whole lot more than that. Uh, but there was that. So I will say that there was that's I can say that it was like pretty solid for what it was. My old mouse. Um, Beech Bend is a cool little park. Yeah. All right, that's fair. Vortex, if that's the water slide, I didn't do any water slides there. That was not a priority. Um, Best part about Beech Bend, yeah, it's hilarious. Like it is, like I don't know that I mean I guess depending on the region, yeah, like it's a decent sized city. But yeah, you're right. You kind of are on like some streets and like there's buildings and businesses. Then you just turn and then yeah, you're just farmland and farms. And then off in the distance is Beech Bend. That was pretty funny. That was kind of cool. So yeah, that was actually kind of neat. Interestingly, so I mean, yeah. So I guess that a very Kentucky thing, I guess. So. Um, yeah, that definitely was something that did stand out. Not that you mention it. Besides the aspirin and the condiments thing, on the ride station, the ride ops were a little more lax than I've seen anywhere else. Yes, there was the racetrack. I we saw a bit of it. I know it's right next to there, but I didn't pay too much attention to that. But it is there. There is a little racetrack thing right there. But for Beech Bend, for Kentucky Rumbler, one of the things that was a little odd is the ride-ups were like a pretty lax. Like one of them was like playing around with a yo-yo, and I'm like, all right, that's just like I don't really see that at any other parks. Um, and it was just there were some things that were a little like you wouldn't see it at the bigger parks. Um, but I mean, like it was just interesting that there, for sure. The dispatches weren't super fast, but like there weren't many people there, so it's not like it mattered. Um, it's in the top three least. It's well in terms of like pure spinning. Wild Mouse is the worst one. Like if you're talking about a spinning coaster, like Rada on how its spinning ability is, it is literally the worst one. But in terms of like as an actual coaster, it's a bottom three spinner. I have it very close to Undertow, which is like another spinning coaster that underwhelmed, but Undertow at least like spins. I just didn't really think it was all that intense. Um, and then like I mean, yes, Laugh Track kind of is also on the like more mild side in terms of spinning, but that's intentional, and at least you have um the sort of background and sort of atmosphere and the theming around there, so it kind of works out just fine. But yeah, Wild Mouse was not impressive. I will say that much already. So I think that's yeah. I rode Undertow once at Santa Cruz. I don't know if our car maybe it probably our car wasn't balanced and it was like braking pretty hard at that day. I don't know if it was like usual or not. It was not very good in my experience. It just didn't really do a whole lot. That's a ride that I'll probably get a redemption ride on at some point, but in my one experience, it was not all that great. So I'll just say that I rode it once and I like kind of skipped it on my future visits. Alrighty, so I guess now I'll also so we did a lot of Beech Bend Q&A. So I'll bring up Kentucky Kingdom if anyone has any questions for Kentucky Kingdom. Still, if you have any questions about anything, go for it. But I guess I'll mention Kentucky Kingdom because that one hasn't I haven't seen too many questions related to that. Also, I'll probably I kind of mentioned on Instagram throughout the trip, like my thoughts on things. So I don't think I've archived my thoughts, but I'll probably do it so it's visible from there also. So if I'm forgetting anything, I'll mention it. Did I like their flat ride? So I did intend to ride Cyclos, but it was down by the time I was going to ride it. And by the time it reopened, it was just too late in the day for me to justify doing it. So I can't speak too much on the flat rides. I only did the Larson Drop Tower, and of course I enjoyed that. I know they also had a flying scooters. I did do the flying scooters at Holiday World, so I didn't feel the need to do that one. And I know there were some other flat rides here and there. I know they had an Endeavor, which I actually completely forgot about until later in the day when I finally went through the portion of the park that had it. I'm like, oh yeah, they have an Endeavor. Which, looking back, that would have been cool to have tried out. But there's a decent amount of those at parks, so I'm not too disappointed I missed out on that. But I can't really give a good assessment on the flat rides because I basically only rode the coasters plus the drop tower. So no water park either, for anyone who's curious. Yes, Kentucky Kingdom officially, it has the weirdest park layout I've experienced. It is baffling, like just how, I mean, I expected it to be weird, but yeah, when you're actually there, it's just a whole different story. I only crossed over the actual road once. Every other time I just went over the bridge. But I mean, it was just still super weird that was a thing. And then, like, you could theoretically sort of walk around the water park to access a lot of the dry rides, but a lot of times it was more convenient to just walk through the water park. So, you're just walking right next to like the wave pools and stuff, which is admittedly a little odd when you're just trying to get to like Kentucky Flyer or like say Thunder Runner Storm Chaser. So it's very weird in that way. So I would definitely say weirdest park layout for sure. I mean that definitely lived up to the expectation. In terms of that, there's also this weird thing where like the people for a lot of the rides, I understood like Thunder Run, but for some reason people were like queuing for like the first half of the train, but like which would have multiple cycle waits, but like the back half would be a walk on. It was very odd. I've never seen that happen in any other park. I don't really know if there's like a reason for it, but literally there were some coasters and some lines where it's like row 5 had like a 2 to 3 cycle wait, but you could just go to row 6 like immediately. I'm just kind of like, I don't understand why you're waiting extra cycles for row 5. And so that was also kind of strange. Obviously that's not like a Kentucky, I don't know if that's like a park thing. That's just more maybe an area. I'm not really sure. That was extremely weird. For sure. How high is Storm Chaser? Okay. So I'm gonna mention this. Right off the bat, Lightning Run was my favorite coaster at Kentucky Kingdom, which I know it's a little bit of a hot take. Not like completely obscure. There's a decent amount of people who are saying that now, but Storm Chaser definitely disappointed me. I'll just say straight up, in the morning, it was the worst RMC iBox conversion at that point that I had ever ridden. Like, it wasn't really even close. And at that, like, Joker is currently my least favorite, or at the time it was. I should say it's not currently now because I rode another one in the park after, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, it was very disappointing. Like, the airtime strength was like pretty strong, but it didn't really feel like anything that crazy for RMC standards. And I'm just kind of the layout isn't really all that interesting, to be honest. Has like the worst first drop of any RMC. And Medusa Steel does the barrel roll drop like miles better. Just because of the structure and everything. And I think even the profiling, I don't know, something about the Medusa Steel one, it's like hypnotizing. The Storm Chaser one's just very weak. And I didn't get the hype. Now, later in the day, the ride warmed up, and, you know, it was like, the airtime was definitely, like, a lot of it was, like, on the, like, really strong side for what you would expect for, like, the strongest moments on most RMCs. So, like, I can get kind of the hype that it's, like, it has so many moments that are, like, that have airtime that is that strong. I do ultimately think that Storm Chaser was running a little slow for me, is just my guess. Just kind of based on how it seemed to be running. So I think that could have impacted things. But even still, I wasn't super impressed with the layout. And ultimately, it did end up ranking ahead of Joker for me, but I have it literally a spot below Twisted Cyclone. And the reason I have Twisted Cyclone higher is I think Twisted Cyclone has the better highlight moments, and I think Twisted Cyclone has as strong of airtime as Storm Chaser, even if it's in a lot less of quantity. I think the moments on that are the best moments stand out more than, say, on Storm Chaser, and I prefer to lay out on that ride. So Storm Chaser is actually on the lower end of RMCs I've done, especially the iBoxes. The only ones I have behind it in terms of iBoxes are Joker and New Texas Giant. And then I have Twisted Cyclone, Medusa Steel Coaster, Twisted Colossus. If you consider Lightning Rod as an iBox at this point, Lightning Rod, and then Steel Vengeance all above Storm Chaser. So that is kind of my thoughts there. But Lightning Run, that ride lived up to the hype. The finale on that ride is one of the greatest finales on any coaster ever. I think, and honestly, for as strong as people said the airtime on Storm Chaser was, I honestly felt like the airtime on Lightning Run was at least as strong, if not potentially even stronger. In that ride, I mean, that finale is just ridiculous. It is like, I think it's kind of like what I thought Magnum was gonna be is kind of what I thought what Lightning Run was. Like when people hype up the Magnum hills and everything, I mean, the Lightning Run hills were just ridiculous, like 4 straight sustained ejector pops, and even the sort of S-bend going into it. It's not like super forceful or anything, but it does feel like you do get a good sensation of speed, and it does feel a little out of control, and it really sets up well for that finale. So that was fantastic. The first drop was amazing. There was one off-axis hill that was also really good. I was just super impressed with that ride. There's like only one section in the ride that I even call a dead section. Like, I think the first turnaround doesn't really do a whole lot. I think every other part of the ride does something. So it was fantastic, and it seemed to be running really well. So I was super impressed with it. And I do actually have it above like a decent amount of RMCs. Like, obviously Storm Chaser, Joker, New Texas Giant, but I also have it above Twisted Cyclone and Railblazer as well. So I do hold it in very high regard. It definitely lived up to the hype for me. Magic Springs is like that as well. That's funny because Ed Hart was involved with that park too, so maybe he likes that. The weird park layouts, I don't know. Yeah, New Texas Giant is my least favorite RMC coaster, period. I mean, I know I know over Texas is close to you, so I'm trying to I'm trying to say, because I really appreciate the coaster still. It's still a fun ride. It's still obviously a good coaster and an amazing first coaster for a manufacturer. I mean, most coasters, it's like their first coaster, it's like it's not really all that great, but that ride is legitimately like very good. The problem is it's like the least aggressive RMC in existence. The first half is like close to like the standard of like most is like trying to be kind of close to like the standard of most RMCs, but it's not even hitting. And then the second half is just like the description of it being a mine train, like on like basically a souped up mine train, is pretty accurate. It just like you get airtime, but it's like it's not all that strong, and it's very tame. The ride just feels in the second half. I still appreciate it a lot. Obviously, if we didn't get that ride, we wouldn't have gotten the other iBox creations. But like it, I'll just say, like, just for reference, the coaster is literally my 50th ranked coaster out of 159. Like, it is by far my lowest ranked RMC. And even a ride like Apocalypse at Magic Mountain, I actually do rank higher than this ride. Very different rides, but just to kind of let you know where it ranks in my list. So yeah, that was that's my review of New Texas Giant. I wrote in front and back. I actually do prefer it in the front because I thought the airtime in the I thought most of the elements hit better besides the first drop actually in the front row, even in the first half. I think some of the overbanks have there's a little interesting banking to them, so you get a little bit of airtime, and you could feel that more in the front row. And then the second half, the airtime was a little better, but it was still like nothing all that crazy. I did not get cinnamon bread at Kentucky Kingdom, so I still hold the same opinion. I considered it, but ultimately we did not end up doing that. I have not done Twisted Timbers, but I've heard that barrel roll drop is also really good. It seems to be very similar to the Medusa Steel one, so I think it's more along those lines. So yeah. The Shoot the Chutes ride at Kentucky Kingdom is one of the most soaking water rides anywhere. Actually, I have a funny story with that. I was walking past it. I was pretty far from under the structure, but I felt like water droplets coming down. I'm like, wait, is it raining? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But no, it's like it's from the ride. I wasn't even standing directly under it, and it's like somehow like the water droplets were hitting me. So I could definitely believe it, that it's like super soaking. I could definitely believe that for sure. Because already from off ride, it was like it could get you a little bit. Even like nowhere near like the splash zone and drop and everything. Thunder Run. So Thunder Run was actually very interesting. So this is a coaster that if you go there, you need to let it warm up and you need to ride it in the front row. Because honestly, it's one of the more interesting wooden coasters I've done, just because of how much it can vary. So to be completely honest, like in the back row and in the morning, it's like the first half at least has some pretty good airtime, and the second half is like literally Grizzly level. Which, if you know me, is Grizzly at Great America is one of my least favorite coasters of all time. But if you let it warm up and you ride it in the front row, For one, you'll get the smoothest ride. Thunder Run is not like the smoothest coaster, especially towards the back, but in the front, it's pretty good. The airtime is actually really strong in the first half towards the front. And then even in the second half, the airtime's like not as strong, but you'll still get some stuff, and the ride still ends up being like okay in the second half. It's a ride that has a really good first half, like a surprisingly good first half, a lot of strong airtime, even like some good sense of speed. And then the second half, it just dies for the most part. But like I said, once it's warmed up, you'll at least get a few airtime moments. It's still pretty lackluster, but it's at least there, I guess. So honestly, once you get a warmed up front row ride, I do actually think it is a decent wooden coaster, but you do have to kind of wait for it. I can kind of get there are some like fans of Thunder Run, and I can kind of see why, based off the better rides I got. I do think there is something to be said for the front row first half airtime. I do think that was quite impressive, to be honest. And I do think those airtime moments were quite a bit stronger and better than anything you would find on Kentucky Flyer, though I do think Kentucky Flyer is a just overall more consistent ride. Like, pretty much all but one of the hills hits on Kentucky Flyer. But I think I kind of went into my thoughts on that earlier when I went into the Timberliners. Also, very unfortunate update for Kentucky Flyer, but I thought I would mention it. Unfortunately, if you remember, there was a Coaster Kids sign by the station as you kind of walked up. There was a Coaster Kids sign. Logan was there. It was like kind of on the door. That has been removed. I don't know if that happened like a year ago or if that's new for this year, but the sign with the Coaster Kids thing was removed when I was there. So very unfortunate for those of you who were expecting to see that. It is gone, unfortunately. So yeah. Alrighty, I guess I'll move on to Six Flags Over Texas. Haven't gotten a lot of questions about this one. I guess I should just mention this because I think people on Instagram kind of know what happened, but on YouTube you might be like, I didn't even mention this park at all. Like, why did I go here? Basically our flight to Louisville to Dallas was made even earlier, so we were gonna have to wait 4 hours to be in the airport at Dallas to go back to Fresno. And so I decided to ask and see if we could delay the flight to a later time and see how much it was. And it turns out we could actually do it for free. So we just ended up doing that. So we basically decided to go to Six Flags Over Texas. Unfortunately, I didn't look at the weather when I made that decision. So it turned out there was going to be some storms later in the day, which I did know by the time I was going there. So I kind of planned accordingly. But I was only there for like a little over, I think, 3 hours, but I was able to do a decent bit. I hit up the major coasters and even got some re-rides on a few of them. So I will say that, but I will say that I don't have like the full Over Texas experience. But it's a park that I imagine I'll probably get back to at some point. I was pretty impressed from what I saw in a lot of phases. I thought it was very good looking. As far as Six Flags parks go, the landscaping and the theming was definitely among the best. I think honestly probably the best like when it comes to consistency, because I think Six Flags Mexico has the best high-end theming and like the best like sort of like pretty much the best high-end theming, but it's not like super consistent throughout the park. I think Over Texas is a lot more consistent, and Over Texas honestly feels like a theme park almost. So it basically was like we were there for a few hours and we toured around Dallas. So that's kind of how I ended up getting there. But yeah, like I said, any questions for Six Flags Over Texas you have, let me know. Worst coaster, I assume worst coaster at the park. Cop out answer, but I did do Mini Mine Train. Actually, I should mention what coasters I did because there were some that were down and some I was just not prepared to ride. So let me pull up the official list I had here. So the rides I rode were New Texas Giant, Shockwave, Mr. Freeze, Batman the Ride, Titan, La Vibora, Judge Roy Scream, and Mini Mine Train. Those were the coasters I rode. Runaway Mine Train was down, sadly, as was the original Log Flume, which was unfortunate. And the other coasters I just couldn't quite get to. Aquaman I had to skip because we basically went to Over Texas on a whim, and I was not ready to get soaked. So that pretty much is what happened, and I had to skip out on Pandemonium, Runaway Mountain, which my plan for that backfired because I was expecting it would be open during the thunderstorms, and it wasn't. I intentionally skipped it, so whenever the thunderstorms hit, I could do that, and that did not work. And then let's see what other the kitty credit I missed. I missed Joker as well, and there's 14 coasters at Over Texas, so I forget which other one I'm forgetting to mention that I missed out on. But if I didn't mention it in the ones I rode, then I didn't write it. So I'll just mention that. It wasn't actually that hard to find Runaway Mountain. The one that was hard to find was Judge Roy Scream. That was ridiculously hard to find. And we kind of found it in the nick of time because that was the last ride we got before the thunderstorms came. Literally, had I gone one cycle, had I been on the cycle before, I wouldn't have been able to ride it. So that sort of lucked out. But no, Judge Roy Scream is the hardest coaster ever to find. It also didn't help because I couldn't study the map because the decision to go to that park was it came in my mind about 5 to 6 hours before we ended up going. So usually I kind of plan and research stuff. I had no time to do that with Over Texas. Titan was also pretty tricky to find the entrance. That one was honestly pretty hard as well. That 2 or 3 times, to be honest. That was not fun doing that. I will say Titan was really funny because it was so weird because obviously I have Magic Mountain as my home park. I've driven past, or either me or my family has driven past Magic Mountain countless times, and of course been there. So it was so weird to see Titan just there, in Texas by the sports stadiums and stuff. It's my brain was trying to tell me it was Goliath, but it obviously wasn't. So that was interesting. And by the way, while we're on Titan, way better than Goliath. I'm not saying it's amazing or anything. It's still a pretty weak hyper, but the upward helix is the best element on that ride. And honestly, I didn't feel the brakes. They still get you to close to a dead stop, but I felt they were a little more lenient for whatever reason. So I do want to mention that. So it just seemed to be running a lot better overall. So Titan over Goliath for me pretty easily. I will say that. Still didn't think it was amazing or anything, but it was quite a bit better than Goliath to a funny degree. To New Texas Giant, I kind of explained earlier. You can. I don't want to repeat myself, so if you want to go back and check out my thoughts on it, pretty much I appreciate what that coaster did for the industry and for RMC, but it's my least favorite RMC coaster I've done by quite a bit, mostly because it's very tame for RMC standards, and the elements, they just don't really hit all that much. Still a fun ride and a phenomenal ride for a first coaster for a manufacturer, but it did not blow my socks off, I'll just say that much. La Vibora was definitely an interesting ride. So I knew it was janky, I knew it was potentially rough, I knew it was one of those rides that I knew that it was one of those rides where it had a lot of mixed opinions. And so that was actually the first ride I rode that day. Made sure to rope drop that because the capacity is horrible on that. So recommend doing that if you go to the park. And so we were like maybe second riders of the day on it. And I forget, was it, I think we were second, but we almost ended up being, I think, first riders of the day on that. But anyways, yeah, so La Vibora, it is a jank machine. It really is. And not even in a horrible way. It is like whenever you go from the track to the bobsled, it's so rough. It's like actually like pretty brutal transition, but it's kind of funny, and just the overall ride is it just doesn't feel right, but it's kind of funny. It's kind of in an amusing way. It's kind of a train wreck of a ride, but it's kind of like just funny that it's the way it is. It's a very weird ride to describe. I still thought it was kind of fun. It doesn't rank super high in my overall rankings. It honestly, it definitely felt very weird though. And it was a little bit spooky as well, because with the bobsled style like train as well, or not the train, but also the the slide, of course, or the track, I should say. There were some moments where it was like, oh boy, it does kind of look like you could like fall out of it. Obviously you're not, but it was kind of a spooky visual for sure. Jackson, I mentioned my thoughts on Thunderbird earlier, so I'll defer you to that if you haven't watched that earlier. I kind of explained that earlier. Batman the Ride, I did do Batman. My least favorite Batman clone, for a few reasons. First off, I wrote it kind of in the morning, so I think that also didn't help. But toward the beginning, it had like a more significant shuffle than the other two Batman clones I've done, which are at Overgeorge and Magic Mountain. And it just didn't seem to be running as well, so it was my least favorite Batman clone. Still, obviously, a really good ride. And it's still a ride that I quite enjoy, but definitely it was weaker than the other two Batman clones. Though the circumstances I wrote it in did not help. Though it was a very hot day, but it was in the morning, so it was, I think, in the 90s at the hottest point. Let's see. Yes, I did. I was talking about Titan earlier. I did prefer it over Goliath, quite easily. It was actually, like I said, quite amusing how much better it was. Yes, obviously, like having the best element of the two helps with the upward helix, but even like the second half seemed to just run better. Outside of that, I don't think there was a whole lot of difference. Like, I think the first half up until the upward helix was like about the same. So I'll mention that. All right, so I haven't seen any questions for Mr. Freeze or Shockwave, which is kind of surprising. So I might just mention that before we kind of go into like some of the other segments we're gonna do, because we do have a few other segments. But ultimately, my favorite coaster at Over Texas ended up being Mr. Freeze. And it was a really surprising coaster. Like, I know there's a lot of people who've hyped it up, said it's the best premier coaster, but I was not ready for how, like, actually insane that ride is. I mean, I only rode it once. I rode it in the front row. This is the one that's running forward, so I will say the launch was like decent, but not super forceful. But the inverted top hat is legitimately like one of the most insane elements on any ride out there. When I wrote it, I couldn't believe it. Like, you legit get ejector airtime while you're upside down going through it forward. Like, I was stunned. that was already insane. And then, of course, it's a pretty intense ride. Like, the valleys are super intense, and you have the high-speed turn, of course, which have some really strong positive Gs, which also helps the ride become very disorienting because, you're graying out a bit in those sections. And then you reach the spike, and my goodness, I mean, that is insane. I mean, the spike is like the best, like, sort of spike weightless feeling I've gotten on any coaster. It is actually freaky how long you were just weightless with the little bit of a launch. I mean, it is insane. Like, I thought Superman Escape from Krypton had some nice weightlessness, but Mr. Freeze just completely destroys that. It is absolutely insane. And then going through the layout backwards, of course, that's pretty disorienting. But the going through the inverted top hat backwards, I honestly felt like it was a lot more like sort of floaty hang time, but getting it backwards was like really crazy. So it like felt different than how you went through it for like the first time, but I actually kind of like that. It gave it like more variety. Even though it's one element, like how it can feel like quite a bit different going forwards and backwards. I thought that was pretty cool. And I mean, I was just blown away by that ride. I unfortunately was only able to get the one ride on it. I would have loved to gotten a second one. Because I do wonder if it's like that first ride was just so impressive that it like elevates the ride like in my rankings more than it should. But like it's my number 25 coaster, which might sound insane. Out of 159, it's like what? But legitimately, I thought it was that good. For reference, it's like right below Furious Baco in my rankings. So that's like where it's at. I need to bring up my coaster count just to make sure what rides I have like right around it. So I was really impressed with that ride. But yeah, so it's below Furious Baco and it's above Tatsu, which obviously Tatsu is a very different ride. But that's both rides that I think have like some pretty insane standout elements, like when it comes to like their best element. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic. And then Shockwave also actually was pretty impressive. I was not impressed with Riddler Mindbender. Actually, before I go into this, Civilian Satellite, thank you so much for checking out the stream. And have a great rest of your night as well. So wanted to say that. But anyways, for Shockwave, that ride was really surprising too. So the double loops were super intense, like one of the most intense elements on any coaster out there. Even in a park that has some pretty intense elements, like obviously like Titan's definitely up there too with like the upward helix, and obviously the helix in the second half as well. But I think Shockwave, that double loop might have those beat, but it's kind of close. But I mean, that is insane. And then like the ejector airtime you get on some of the hills and some of the drops is just ridiculous. It does seem kind of Magnum-esque, I guess, but like it doesn't really make sense. Like I rode it twice in the back row, and it's like you're going like down the drop or like kind of like either up or down a hill at a point, and it's like it feels like you probably should have already gotten some airtime if you were gonna get it, and then it just like randomly just boom ejects you like when you least expect it. It's very strange, but it's like really good and really addicting. I actually I have Shockwave ranked over New Texas Giant, so I will mention that. That was another ride that impressed me quite a bit. I was very impressed with it, especially because I wasn't that big of a fan of Riddler Mindbender. I was worried this ride could disappoint me. And now I'm just pretty much begging that Six Flags doesn't do what they did to Riddler Mindbender to Shockwave, because I think I kind of see what I can see where the hype for Mindbender was. I and I see Coaster Evan's question right as I'm about to go into this. I unfortunately did not ride Mindbender before it was remodeled, but if Mindbender rode similarly to how Shockwave rides, I can definitely see where the hype was for that ride. That definitely would be a coaster that would have been worth a lot of the praise it got. But I mean, now it's just a shell of its former self. But Shockwave was still fantastic. It was super janky though, but kind of in an amusing way. Like, it wasn't like rough, but it kind of tracked weirdly. So that was also kind of funny. And like the airtime was like, it was really powerful and unexpected and kind of like cursed in a way, just because it was like, what is this? But the ride was really good in my opinion, for sure. So that definitely was a pleasant surprise, for sure. I did not check out Aquaman. I would have loved to. The reason I didn't is like I said, we basically went to Six Flags Over Texas on a whim, and I was not prepared to get soaked. I did not have the right clothes to get soaked, so I just had to pretty much pass on it, which is unfortunate. Honestly, out of all the coasters I missed, that was the one that kind of hurt the most, because at least as of right now, it is a one-of-a-kind model in North America. And it does look like a cool and fun ride. It's just, I definitely, when I go back, I'll make sure to do that one. So, and I think the opportunity will arise, because now that, with kind of the layover stuff in my airport, oftentimes it will go to Dallas, for layovers. I think the opportunity could arise. So, I definitely, would love to check that out when I go back at some point. So, I think that's pretty much over Texas. I think that's pretty much everything. So with that being said, I'm going to actually do one of the segments that I was talking about earlier, and that is the quiz. So I do have a quiz that was actually created by Frontier Coasters, mostly. Thanks to him, we have this quiz. I wasn't going to do one, but he was nice enough to create one, so huge thanks to him for doing this. There wouldn't have been a quiz for this stream otherwise. Yeah, that was pretty much, I mean, that's pretty much why this is happening. So, get ready for the quiz. I'm about to pull it up, and we're gonna go from there. Alrighty, so let me pull it up on the second screen. And, alrighty. And I created this portion of the slide, so that is, that's my work here. But welcome to the roller coaster quiz. So here it is. Can you see it well? Hopefully. Frontier Coasters will not be participating because he created the quiz, but anyone else, it's fair game. So we have the roller coaster quiz. I will be scoreboarding it like I did the last one. So with that being said, we're gonna get started. And actually, wait, no, I need to get the timer ready. So it'll be about a 60-second timer. So that's going to start with our first question in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, here's the first question. Who founded the original Six Flags, or really the Six Flags company in general? It's pretty much the same answer. The timer starts now. And only your first answer will count. So make sure you do your best guess on, or your best answer on your first chance to guess. So there you go. And no using the internet or RCDB, please, if we can try to avoid it. A lot of people going with the same answer. We'll see if it pays off. The last quiz we had some where it's like it paid off, and then there was other ones where it was like everyone got it wrong. So this will be an interesting thing to see if that ends up working out. But honestly, I'll be honest, I wasn't even aware of this heading in. I mean, I actually didn't know that this was the person who did it. So I was actually this was news to me. So very good question for Frontier Coasters. But apparently all of you also knew what it was because the answer is C. Angus Wynn, if I pronounced that correctly, was the one who founded Six Flags. So that is the correct answer. And so just to I'll get everybody on the board. Charge on PC got it, so that is a point. Coaster Evan also got it. That is a point. Michael got it. That is a point. Jackson got it. That is a point. And then Stamford Bridge got it, and that is a point. Alrighty. I think I got everybody, so that'll do it for the first question. And now we'll go into our second question, which is which country has the most roller coasters? The timer starts now. Already seeing some variety in answers, so we're gonna have a little bit of differences here. That's for sure. And actually, I should have put an end, but I do know, so we're charged on PC. He was the first one to answer. They were the first one to answer. So, let's see. The timer is getting close to running out. And that is the timer. All right, so I'm going to put N just for future reference. Alrighty, so the correct answer is B, France. France actually, out of all these countries, has by far the most roller coasters. They have over 200 existing ones. So France is actually the correct answer there. Might be a little surprising because you would think India being like such a large country, population-wise, they would have the most, but no, it's actually France. So that is the correct answer. So with that being said, Michael got that one correct, so that is 2 points for Michael. And then Coaster Evan also got it, so that is 2 points. Alrighty, we'll head to question number 3, which is which Vekoma coaster of these listed opened first? Timer starts now. So, which of these opened first? And very clearly not the one in the picture. That one's not even eligible. That is actually Orcanon at Farup Summerland, for those of you who were wondering what coaster that was. So, but obviously not an eligible coaster. And also it's way newer than all of these other coasters anyways. So, we'll see what is chosen. Already, at least for me, over halfway through the timer. So we'll see what people put in. The answers are coming in quickly, so we'll see what it ends up being. If you join late, you can still join the quiz. We're still pretty early on, so you can make a comeback if you want to. Only the third question, so make sure to join if you just came in. That being said, that is the timer. And so with that being said, the correct answer is, and actually I have to put ends just to make sure, but the correct answer is Riddler Revenge at Six Flags New England. So that'll be a point for Charged on PC, giving them 2 points. Michael gets 3 points now. And then Jackson gets a second point. So there we go. Moving on to our next question, we have which coaster opened in 2001? So there you go. Which coaster opened in 2001? Yep, used to be Mind Eraser at Six Flags New England. That is correct. Once again, obviously not the coaster in the picture. That is Kingdom Coaster for those who didn't know, at Dutch Wonderland. That is the one pictured there. So there you go. But which of these coasters opened in 2001? All right, some answers are starting to come in here. The Wi-Fi icon's coming, so hopefully the stream has not been affected. Man, everyone's going for the same answer. We'll see. We'll see what it is. Oh, we have a little... Okay, we have a difference. All right, and that's... We have reached the timer. So I'm going to put end there. And the correct answer is Cornball Express at Indiana Beach. That is the only one of these that opened in 2001. So Coaster Evan got the answer correct. I believe the only one to get a point. And that gives Coaster Evan 3 points. So Michael and Coaster Evan are tied for the lead with 3 points currently. Which will lead us into our next question. Which coaster of the bunch listed was designed by Alan Schilke? And the timer starts now. That was a random guess? Well, it was a good guess. For sure. Charged on PC already has an answer right out the gate. Already, that was fast. And obviously, once again, not the one in the picture. That is X2, but you wouldn't need me to tell you that one. The best coaster in California, by the way, in that picture. But anyways, with that being said, we're running close to out of time. About 15 seconds left for you to answer, though the stream's delayed, so that really doesn't help you all that much. But time is about to end here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's the timer. So that's gonna put an end to any answering, and the correct answer was indeed C, Roadrunner Express at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. Everyone who answered got it correct, so Charged on PC has 3 points, Coaster Evan has 4 points, Jackson has 3 points, Stamford Bridge has 2 points, and Michael has 4 points. So there you go. And this is a 10-question quiz, not a 15, so I just wanted to mention that. We also do have a tiebreaker question in play if we need it. So there you go. But we'll move on to our next question, which is, where is the last remaining Schwarzkopf Alpen Blitz located in? This is a powered Schwarzkopf coaster model that only one remains, and the timer starts now. Once again, Charged on PC coming strong right out of the gate. We'll see if that ends up working out. We also have some variation in answers, so we'll see how this goes. About halfway through the potential answering, so we'll see how you all answer. About 15 seconds left. And actually, this picture is of the coaster, or at least specifically the coaster model. So at least there is that. So this picture is actually relevant. But anyways, that'll wrap it up for the timer. Let me just put an end here. So with that being said, the correct answer is D. India is actually the location of the last remaining Schwarzkopf Alpen Blitz. And a few people put in Germany. That would make a lot of sense. That's a logical answer. It just did not end up being that. So Charged on PC has 4 points, and Coaster Evan actually takes the lead now with 5 points. So there you go. We'll move on to our next question, which is who manufactured Big Dipper at Camden Park? So once again, who manufactured Big Dipper at Camden Park? I thought it was a coaster at Europa Park. Nope. You're thinking, I think, of the I believe it's the Mach powered coaster. I think that's the one you're thinking of. But anyways, about halfway through answering for this one. Everyone going for the same answer up to this point. Now Stamford Bridge has a different answer. We'll see who this ultimately ends up paying off for. Oh, you live near there? Yeah, I was in West Virginia once, but I did not go to this park. I was nowhere close to it. But yeah. Alright, so that is the timer. And so that'll pretty much wrap it up. The correct answer for this is A, National Amusement Devices. So a lot of you got that one right. So Charged on PC has 5 points. Coaster Evan has 6 points. Jackson has 4 points. Michael has 5 points. And I think that's everyone's points as far as I'm aware. Alrighty, so we'll move on to our next question, which is, what was the first park acquired by Cedar Fair? So, once again, what was the first park that was ever acquired by Cedar Fair? So, and look, I know some people are going to be like, oh, well, Cedar Point. Well, no, that's what started them, so no. That is not it. So there you go. So once again, first park acquired by Cedar Fair. A lot of consistency in the answers here, but we'll see if that pays off or not. Jackson has a different answer, so we'll see. Alrighty, and we're about to end this now. Alrighty, so with that being said, the correct answer is Valley Fair. That is the correct answer. I guess you could say it's debatable because technically this is like them acquiring Valley Fair created Cedar Fair, so I guess it's a little debatable, but I mean, if you're saying Cedar Fair started as Cedar Point, this is the correct answer, and I think most would consider this to be the correct one. So, there's your answer. Charged on PC now has 6 points. Coaster Evan has 7 points. Stamford Bridge has 3 points. And Michael has 6 points. So there is your updated scoreboard, which will lead us into our next question. Second to last one. Which manufacturer has never created a roller coaster with an inversion? I'll say that again. Which manufacturer has never created a roller coaster with an inversion? And actually, this is the only question that I myself fully created. I did decide to put a question of my own in here. This is the one that I created. So. Like I said, most of this quiz, think Frontier Coasters for it. He's the one who made it. But this specific question was one I created, so if y'all get mad at it, that's on me. But yeah. Alrighty, with that being said, we have about 15 seconds left. Also, this picture is going to be of no help. It's of an aero looping coaster in Viper. So, yeah, so we're about to wrap this up in 3, 2, 1. Time is up. And so the correct answer is Reverchon. Reverchon has never created a roller coaster with an inversion. If you want examples from each of these other companies, SBF Visa has their Tower Coaster, otherwise known as Cool and Fresh. That would be their looping coaster. Giovanola or Giovanola, however you want to pronounce it. They have Anaconda at Gold Reef City, and Zero has Impulse at Knoebels. So Reverchon is the only one of these that did not ever create an inversion, and so I'll update the scoreboard. Charged on PC has 7, Jackson has 5, Michael has 7, and then Coaster Evan has 8. So we are down to our final question, which will start now. So, which coaster shut down before Accelerator opened at Knott's Berry Farm? Love this question because this is literally like, the idea is very similar to like what I did, but it's like a little different. I've done the questions of which of these coasters was operating before this ride opened, and this is like the opposite. So very this I think was my favorite question, just from like a concept that Frontier Coasters did. I thought this was like a pretty cool one, but a difficult one also, for sure. So once again, the question has been asked. Not a whole lot of time left, so only one answer has come in here so far, and the timer is out. So, yeah, that's gonna be right there. So, all right, so there we go. A lot of answers came in right at the buzzer, seemingly, but the correct answer to this question is C. Comet at the State Fair, Comet 2, I should say, sorry, at the State Fair of Texas. That is the correct answer. And Coaster Evan actually got that one correct. Coaster Evan was on an absolute roll today, and ended up winning this entire thing with 9 points. Really good guess. So congratulations. And yeah, we'll do the tiebreaker question for fun. So Coaster Evans won this, but for a little bit of a bonus question, yes, we'll do that. So bonus question coming up, and once again brought to you by Frontier Coasters. So here is your bonus question. No points here. Which coaster opened in the same year Cars 2 released? Which, well, another question that I thought was pretty good. So that I also really liked when I saw it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great one. So I really like that. But anyways, timer has started. Honestly, you just get your answers in. It's like honestly, I'm not even gonna have the timer. Just once the answers come in, I'll just kind of end it. Already, so I think, is that everybody? Yep, already. So the answers have come in, so I'm gonna end it. So the correct answer here is Takabisha at Fuji-Q Highland. Was the only coaster that opened in 2011, the year that Cars 2 released. So congratulations. I guess nobody got it right. So I guess it wouldn't have worked really well as a tiebreaker question. But there you go. So that is your quiz. Hope you all enjoyed it. Once again, huge shout out to Frontier Coasters. I did leave a link to the channel in a description, although I know that Frontier Coasters, you don't make that much content on the YouTube channel, but I decided to link it. Also, Frontier Coasters, if you have any media you want to plug, like probably would be a good time to do so. But once again, huge thanks to Frontier Coasters. Made the entire quiz possible and came up with some really good questions. So hope you all enjoyed that. And that'll lead us into our other next segment, which will lead us eventually into the final Q&A. Yeah, the Swarm opened in 2012. It actually opened in 2012. So I do know that one off the top of my head. So, and I did check the questions, like I did like look over them. So all these questions were like accurate, at least to my research capabilities. So along with Frontier Coasters. So there you go. But anyways, there is your there is the quiz. Frontier Coasters, I'm gonna steal some ideas when I make future quizzes. You'll make more. I appreciate that if you have the time to do that. But I definitely like some of the question like concepts, so I'm definitely gonna steal some of those if you don't mind for future quizzes. I really appreciate it. Alrighty, so next we'll move into buy or sell. Also, thank you Stanford Bridge for checking out the stream, and I appreciate it. So thank you for coming on. As I said, we'll move on to buy or sell. So I'm gonna do it like so. Basically, how this works: if you watched Airtime Thrill series, he was a previous guest. I asked him if I could use this for a live stream segment. He was cool with it. So basically, you give me your predictions or takes or just something you've seen online, and let me pretty much like put it in the chat, and I'll buy or sell it if that makes sense. Like I said, if you've ever seen Airtime Thrill series, like same logic, just go through it like mention your things in the chat. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. Also, my brother in the chat went with me to Fresno Playland today. Playland Fresno. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's technically called Playland Fresno, but it really is like the same thing. So, but anyways, I'll have like a little watch. I'll probably like have this up for like 10 minutes in terms of like the amount of time to ask questions. I just saw Charged on PC is heading out. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for checking out the stream. Really appreciate it. And once again, thank you. So yeah, buy or sell. That is what we are doing. Jackson comes in with the first one. Buy or sell, LIMs will become more popular in the next few years because of the success with Big Bear Mountain. And you can, I think, lump in Lightning with that. It's like, are we going to see other manufacturers go that route? I'm kind of selling that, but I think we'll see more Vekoma coasters go with that, like, sort of launch system. So if you're asking if this is like more of a Vekoma thing, like, are we going to see more Vekoma coasters with that system, then I buy it. If you're saying like in general with other manufacturers, I'm going to sell because so many of them have moved to LSM. So kind of like a halfway between both. Like, it just kind of depends on what you're asking, I suppose. But buy for Vekoma, sell for other manufacturers is basically where I sit with that. I just hope we get more bear-themed coasters. I guess there aren't that many. Well, we have Grizzly. We have a few Grizzly coasters. Big Bear Mountain. Outside of that, I'm kind of Great Bear. There's actually a decent amount out there, but not as much as like cats and stuff like that. That like just dominates, or snakes. Buy or sell, Cedar Fair will upgrade their suspended family coasters to the new gen trains in the next 10 years. Ugh. It's a good question. It's a logical question. I only display my like sort of disgust out of like, I just don't like the idea, but it's a good question. I mean, I'm gonna say sell because we still haven't seen it happen yet. Like Cedar Fair is a very like they do like we see them do trends, and until something happens where there's something that indicates something like that's gonna happen, I'm going to sell that. I really hope that we do not see the suspended family coasters get new gen trains, because I've heard they're just nowhere near as good as the current ones that they have right now. Buy or sell a new Vekoma looping coaster, non-tilt, will come to the USA in the next 5 years. I'll buy it. I think some park is gonna do it. Maybe even as soon as next year, to be honest. I think we're gonna see it happen. I think some park's gonna get a launch coaster. Probably some park's gonna be interested in a launch coaster, and that's what it's gonna end up being. That or an STC, maybe for a park that has a gap in the lineup for that. There's not very many, but I think more along the lines we'll probably see a launch coaster realistically. So I think that's going to be the next one we see. Buy or sell Kong at Discovery Kingdom will be the next SLC to be torn down. Another question that's a little complicated because I guess we're kind of assuming T3 and Mind Eraser are dead at this. Well, T3 is dead, but Mind Eraser at Six Flags America, I think it's pretty much dead. Kong's like in a weird spot. I really don't know. Is it still closed right now? I should know this, but I don't. It's still on the right website, right? Yep, still there. Doesn't say closed. I know it's had a little bit of downtime here and there. But do I think it's going to be the next one? Yeah, it's open. Do I think it ends up being the next one? I'm going to sell. I don't think so. I don't think it ends up being the next one. I think there's probably somewhat like one somewhere else that would go first. I couldn't tell you what it would be, but to say like Kong specifically would be like the next one is just pretty specific. So I'm just gonna have to sell it. Buy or sell, there will be a ground up art. Yep, yes, I buy that. The only thing is there hasn't been a whole lot of movement for that area. I almost wonder, like, did that thing get delayed? Because we haven't, like, there was all this talk, it was like the waiver for 2024 and everything, and it seemed like they were at one point for sure getting a coaster like next year, and I do believe it would have been an RMC Hyper Hybrid. But perhaps maybe that died, at least for this year. Maybe that ends up being next year. But I do believe at some point, yes, they will probably get an RMC Hyper Hybrid for that area. So I do buy it, yes. Buy or sell, a new major theme park with over 5 coasters will open in South America in the next 10 to 15 years. You do have the Inca Park project, which would technically fall under that. The problem is that I think there's reasons to believe that park is illegitimate, and that project is a illegitimate project and probably will never materialize, unfortunately. But, I do, the fact that that's been proposed, I think there's going to be some interest, and I do wonder, there is a new park in Mexico called Vedanta World that's going to have some pretty crazy theming. That's the one that's getting the Vekoma launch coaster. I think there could be a world where that inspires some other places in other countries in Latin and South America to make something pretty big and impressive of their own. So honestly, I actually will buy this because I think some way, somehow there will be one, because only one, right? It just needs to be one. And I do believe that will actually happen. So I will buy it. which I might be unpopular, but I think something like that is definitely like realistic. But I'm certainly no expert there, so I don't know if that should be taken with a whole lot. If Mind Eraser goes defunct, it will move up in the rankings. Well, I'm pretty sure it's done. I think it is actually done, but we'll see. Buy or sell, after Sand Serpent closes, it will be sold to another park. Let's see how old this ride is. So obviously it was at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and it's already been relocated once. This is a mock, compact, mobile, so this is a portable model too. So that definitely makes that a more realistic possibility. And it opened in 96, so let's see. How old are like the oldest ones of this model? So Nagashima Spaland still has one. Honestly, it's so hard because I could see it either way. I could just see it like being killed off completely, or like another park picks it up because like it's a Wild Mouth's coaster that's out there. It just it's a hard one to kind of wrap my head around, but I do think there is but the other issue is I don't know what the status of it is, like how good of shape is it in. Is like kind of the big question. So I could see it going either way. Honestly, if I had to guess, I would say, like, if I had to bet on it, I would probably say no. But just because I do think there is a chance, there's a decent chance, enough chance that it does end up getting sold, I will buy it. Even though I would bet on it not happening, I think there is a decent enough chance to where it could happen that I see, like, I buy it as a legitimate possibility is basically what I'm getting at. I guess you could technically say I sold there because I think it's more likely it doesn't happen, but it's kind of a weird one. Buy or sell, B&M will try to enter the family market again sometime in the next 15 years. I'm buying this because I think they kind of already are doing it. I mean, the new wing coasters at Chessington and Legoland Germany are very much, yes, they have inversions, but they're very much on the more family side of things. So I would say buy. I would say buy for that because I think it's already happening. And there's some Legoland projects in Asia too that are slated to get like family inverts and things of that sort. So I could say buy, but I think it's already happening. So if you're talking about in like the US, if we're gonna see that, that's where maybe, even then I think maybe we could see it. I think maybe these smaller wing coasters and rides could appeal to some parks that wouldn't even consider getting a larger scale B&M. So I definitely could buy it all the way around. But like I said, I kind of think that's already happening. Already, so we've reached about 10 minutes since I started this. So if you have any buy or sell last things you want to get in the last, say, 30 seconds, we'll do that. But if not, I'll go into final Q&A, and that'll pretty much wrap up the stream. You can just ask about anything. So yeah, that'll pretty much be it. But like I said, if you have any last buy or sell stuff, get it in soon. And if not, we'll move into the final Q&A. Alrighty, so okay, we do have one from Frontier Coasters again. B&M will try to enter. Oh wait, no, it showed up in the YouTube chat. There it is. Buy or sell, just like GCI, other wooden coaster manufacturers will enter the Titan track market. Like there's really only one wooden coaster manufacturer. Like, so if you're saying if Gravity Group's gonna make a steel track alternative, I'm gonna sell that. They have very clearly, like, you look at how they're advertising the pre-cut track and everything, they very much pride themselves on being not steel. So I don't think they're gonna go that route. And RMC, the 208 retrack is basically their answer to the Titan track. It just doesn't appear to be a very it just, I mean, with Mindblower it didn't appear to be very good. But I mean, if you're like, so if you're saying if Gravity Group's gonna do it, which I think they're the only other one, they're like really the only other wooden coaster manufacturer, like you could say Intamin or other things that have like had some wooden coasters, I don't think they're gonna touch that part of it. I'm gonna say sell because, like, yeah, GCI has Titan track, RMC has 208 retrack. I don't. Gravity Group's not going to join. I really don't think they are. And they're getting decent work for their pre-cut track. So it's not like they've had numerous coasters that they've put it on. They put it on Voyage, Raven, this year. I think they've put it on Boardwalk, Bullet. Like they had there was like a list, and it was like actually a decent amount of coasters they were putting it on. So it very much is still there. Like parks are interested in that for sure. So I think Gravity Group's just gonna stay put. But you know, it is an interesting question because maybe you would be like, well, Gravity Group, maybe they'd be like they don't have any other option, but I don't think they're gonna go that route. And then, okay, last buy or sell. This will be the last one. More manufacturers will try to re-enter the wooden coaster market with new innovations. I'm going to sell that. It just seems very difficult to try to get back in it when, I mean, even like GCI, which is a mainstay, and like, I mean, RMC was like kind of the hot new one for a little bit, and it's like they've had to go away from it almost completely, if not really completely. And then GCI is going to Titan track for some things. And then you have Gravity Group, which is kind of the lone like wooden like coaster manufacturer. So I'm gonna say sell. I don't think we're gonna see more manufacturers go into that. Also, price of wood, from my understanding right now, is quite high, which would make that difficult too. But with that being said, we're gonna move into our final Q&A. Any last questions you have, let me know. And that'll pretty much wrap up the stream. Thank you all for coming. Definitely this Friday stream, obviously, yes, there were some issues with the mic. I'm going to try to get the USB thing figured out and see if maybe one of those things was the issue. But hopefully I can get that fixed, because otherwise I'm hoping it's a cable issue, because that's a lot more fixable than, say, a mic issue. And actually, as I look at this, I actually think I might see where on the cable this thing had an issue. Yeah, I think it's a cable issue, which is actually good, because that's like best case scenario, because that means the mic's fine. I just have to either find or get a new like cable, which is not that expensive. So I'm just looking at it, I think I kind of see a spot now where it might have had a problem. So hopefully that's the case. Yes, I'm using the Max speakers. I'll listen back on it to see if it was actually decent, but I mean, I'm gonna try to get this thing fixed, because that's what I use. So, but happy to hear that this fix ended up working for today. I do appreciate that. Upcoming trips. I don't have anything planned. Literally, I actually don't. I do not have anything in the works right now, like at all. So I really don't have anything. So that doesn't mean I won't do anything like by the end of the summer or whatever, but there's like nothing. Especially relating to like coasters and stuff, like there's nothing going on that I have even planned right now. Of course, like I'll revisit probably some of the California parks. Maybe I'll head to Discovery Kingdom or something before summer's end, try to get Flash. That's like a possibility. But besides that, there's there's like really nothing. I mean, the trip at the beginning, I did like 5 days in a row of parks. That was kind of the big summer trip. Um, Anything on top of that for this summer would just be like kind of a bonus at this point, in terms of parks. So, and then even beyond that, I really don't have any plans right now. So, that doesn't mean that like literally nothing will happen. Like this time of year, I didn't know that I was going to like Dollywood, when I was going to Atlanta. So I knew I was going to Six Flags over Georgia, and then like Europe in general was like not even an idea. So there a lot of things could change, but right now there are literally nothing. There's like nothing. So yeah. Will Six Flags Great America or New England get a new coaster in 2024? New England, I've heard. The problem is, it's so hard to. I've heard some little rumors and whispers that, and I don't know how much I believe it. I mean, we haven't really seen any work that would suggest anything for either of these parks. But I've heard like maybe Great America would get like an RMC Raptor for 2024, one of the large scale ones, which that would make sense. That'd actually be a pretty nice fit for that park probably. New England, I don't know that I've heard anything about that one. They theoretically are due, but I don't know. At this point, it's pure speculation because I don't think there's anything going on like in terms of like land or anything, and there's not really any teasing going on. I think the one Six Flags park that I feel pretty confident will get a new coaster is Great Adventure. So I think that's the one that I feel pretty confident they will get something for 2024, and probably a coaster. What that is, I wouldn't know. Obviously the rumors are out there and interesting and a little crazy. But I do believe in that park that they will get it. Although they kind of got to get their stuff together first with what they currently have. Nice that El Toro's reopening tomorrow and everything, but the King the Cost situation, like really, it's just kind of like that park can sort of never catch a break, but at the same time, some of it is they do have some blame. There is some blame to be had for the park, and that's not even really controversial to say at this point. It's just kind of what it is. Football question. How do the Atlanta Falcons look this season? I think they were going to be a fun team to watch. I think they could maybe make the playoffs if Ritter is able to operate the offense well enough. But I don't really see them as a serious team. Like, they're going to be a team that is going to be like a fun offense to watch. And even though I don't even know if I'm getting the Sunday ticket because of the weird situation it's in right now, and they're not offering any student discounts. I look forward to seeing what the Falcons can do. As for Desmond Ritter, I have a much more pessimistic outlook on him. I think it's just, the problem is, it's like he improved in the games he was playing, but like the last two games he played against like backup caliber defenses. Like the Cardinals defense was injured beyond belief and was already really bad. And then the Bucks defense for most of the game he was playing against backups. So it's like, yes, he looked better than in his first two games, but like, and he obviously progressed to some degree, but I'm like, I don't really think that he was all that impressive over the course of 4 games. They should have started him earlier. I really was upset that they let Mariota like start for as long as he did. And I guess I'm going a little further in depth into this than I probably should for a coaster stream, but I just, we'll see. It really, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being like a decent starter. I still don't think he's going to be anything like incredible, but I think he could be like a nice, like, around average, maybe even slightly above average starter things. If he really gets to work and everything kind of works out, I could see like him being a good like NFL quarterback, and then I also see a scenario where he ends up being like backup caliber, because that's essentially kind of what he was last year, even when at his best. So, but he's had a full off season, and some obviously stuff to study and everything. So, and he seems like a really good guy. Like I don't doubt him as a person. He seems like a great guy, but it's hard for me to get super excited with him because we've seen so little of him. And I mean, even though he technically got better as across his 4 games, the circumstances were also pretty ideal for him to do that. So it's a wait and see sort of thing. I'm not even really sure what exactly I'm hoping out of him, because if he doesn't really work out, or he's just kind of an average QB, I kind of would rather like that just sort of plays out and we get somebody else. But I mean, he is pretty athletic, and there is some potential there. It's really hard to say. We've seen so little of him, and it's just hard for me to get super excited about someone that it's like it's still very much a mystery in terms of what we're getting. So, but it'll be interesting for sure. But the Falcons overall, they're going to be a ton of fun, I still think. And Ritter can certainly be a part of that for sure. It would be cool to see him ball out. I mean, of course, as a fan, that's what I want to see most, but it's hard to say what'll happen. What coaster manufacturers are most underrated / overrated? Oh, this question. It comes up quite a bit. I always I began to dislike this question. Not like it's not a bad question. It's just like it feels kind of mean. But man, that's like pretty tough. I mean, I guess I think B&M's like kind of my cop-out overrated. I do really like some of their rides, but I think like the hypercoaster model itself is really overrated. It's just not my type of ride. Now, a lot of people like them, and like they're great for parks, it seems like, and everything. Just because like a lot of them got them and it seems to be very successful. But just for me personally, I'm just like not the biggest fan, and so for that reason, I kind of have to lean B&M for overrated. That even though that's pretty harsh, they've been a very successful company. I mean, of course, if I were running a big park or something, like I would probably, just for like getting the most successful, reliable rides, even though they're expensive, B&M is like they like seemingly almost always deliver. So you cannot go wrong with them. But just as a coaster enthusiast and with my preferences, I just think from a ride experience standpoint for myself, they are overrated. And in terms of underrated manufacturers, that's also a tough one. Because I mean, like RMC and Intamin are my favorites, but although even RMC is starting to, I'll admit, the RMC fatigue that supposedly exists is starting to set in for me. Now having ridden 10 of their coasters, it's kind of like, okay. I'm kind of getting to the point. Like, I think Storm Chaser is kind of when I realized I kind of hit it. So I will kind of say that, but underrated coaster manufacturer. That's a good question. It's just I don't have I just don't have a great answer for it. But I think most of them I'm like pretty around like where they are kind of. I do think Premiere, I don't want to be like the next Premiere fanboy. I do think Premiere does make some really like nice coasters, but the comfort collars and their train design like gets a lot of flack, so I think they get a lot more hate than they sometimes deserve. But I think especially after Mr. Freeze and like Full Throttle, it's also a great ride. I do think Premier is underappreciated. I don't think they're like this crazy elite manufacturer, but I think people kind of point out their flaws a lot more. I maybe not necessarily than they should, but they point it out seemingly more than what they actually do well. So I think Premier kind of works for that reason, because I feel like they get criticized way more than they get praised, even though they come out with some pretty nice coasters, for sure. Let's see. I think Kings Island will get a surf coaster. I think that'll be their next coaster. That it's been rumored. I think they're gonna get a B&M surf coaster. There's been some light rumblings and rumors, and it would kind of make sense as a spiritual King Cobra successor. And I think this will be the last question unless anything else comes in from Frontier Coasters. Will Jinma rides try to enter the US market? They tried with the Lakeport at, or Oasis at Lakeport, I think is what it was. But it turns out that park is not getting rides from them, apparently. They are trying, like, they've tried because they have that manufacturer. They made the Noble Rides. It's their Swiss subsidiary, to try to sell their coasters into like Europe and in North America, and like just places where they normally don't. To my knowledge, that hasn't really worked out yet, but maybe it will. I mean, I think they are trying, so yes, they are trying. Are they going to be successful? I think some park will eventually budge and like they'll get something from Noble Rides specifically, which like I said is part of Jinma. So I think yes, but I don't think it's going to be like something super common or that's going to be like spreading like wildfire. But like one project, especially considering like we almost saw it with the Oasis at Lakeport, I certainly think it's possible. So I think we could see it at some point for sure. Alrighty, so that's gonna wrap it up for this stream. Thanks to everyone for watching as always, and kind of sifting through like the obviously the stream got delayed from the last time and it was kind of at a weird inopportune time. This was a time that worked a lot better. A question just came in, so I'll answer that. What new coaster do I think would fit well most at Blackpool Pleasure Beach? That's a good question. The problem is I don't know what their land situation is. And they have a weird lineup. Like they have a lot of like classic style coasters, but then like Icon kind of threw that out the window because that's like a modern Mock Rides launch coaster. But like at this point they have a ton of classic coasters, but they're not afraid to get something like super modern because like and granted I guess a lot of these coasters are technically modern at the time, but like Big One at its time was a pretty groundbreaking attraction. So, and they got their SLC in 2007. So it's actually not even that old. It got relocated, but that is a good question. What would make sense here? That definitely is a good one. You know what? They do have some like kind of oddball coasters. Like they have a steeplechase, which not real. I think it's the only one left. They have Icon. They just put the spinning cars on it recently. Big One isn't like Aero Hypers are not super common nowadays. They still have an Aero Shuttle Loop. And they do have a bobsled coaster. I think something a little unorthodox could be there. Honestly, off the top of my head, an Axis coaster. I mean, I know that's like kind of a cop out answer. It's like, and now, oh, I just saw you mentioned it. Yeah, I think you were going. I swear I did not see that until after I mentioned it. So I'm not piggybacking off of you, but great minds think alike. Yeah, the SNX axis actually kind of makes a decent bit of sense for this park, especially because they don't like. Yes, Icon has spinning back rows, but they don't have a traditional spinning coaster. And if they're tight on space, an axis would actually probably work pretty well. So I think that actually would make a ton of sense there. What do I think Cedar Point's next coaster will be, besides what they're doing with Dragster? I know people have brought up the mod. I don't think they're gonna do it. With Steel Vengeance there, and like there's still a lot of people who think that's a wooden coaster. And you have Gemini, which maybe that gets removed at some point, and Blue Streak. I'm just kind of like, I don't think they're gonna get a modern wooden coaster. I don't believe in that. As cool as it would be, I just do not believe they're gonna do that. A flying coaster, I feel like the time has kind of passed for them to do that. It would have been like a great idea at one point, and I just don't think they're gonna do it. I think it would be an awesome fit, and I would love to see it. I just don't think they're gonna do it. But I just that's another one that's very interesting to try to kind of figure out, because it's kind of like what would make sense. Yeah, that I mean, honestly, I almost even kind of push back on the modern Woody, because it kind of like it makes sense from a lineup standpoint, but I just don't know. It just doesn't seem like super likely to me. But man, I that is a good question. I mean, I was not ready for that one right now. It probably it'd have to be like some relatively new coaster model that like would stand out in their lineup. They kind of have everything almost, it seems like, though, so that's just pretty hard to get. I mean, obviously, people would love to see an RMC T-Rex. That's another coaster that's like ideally, yeah, it would be cool, but like how far, I mean, is that even an existing ride model at this point? In terms of is it even ever going to see the light of day? We'll see. That's a tough one. I couldn't give you a good answer. So honestly, why not? Modern wooden coaster, let's go for it. Because at least that would be, I would like to see that for sure there. So I guess we'll roll with that. And then we have a last one, real last one. After the Dive Coaster Edition, do I think Dorney Park could get a coaster themed to the Flying Dutchman? So because the Flying Dutchman, yeah, was a coaster that operated there. It kind of makes sense from the idea of paying homage. Are they going to pay homage to that ride, though? Pinfari Zyklon? I don't really think so. So I would say no. Yes, this is the SNS 4D coaster is my dream, but they're not going to do that because it's too expensive. I think I've talked like way in the past about like if they could get, like as you said, an Edge and Nika clone. A Mach Extreme Spinner would also be sick. Those two would be my dream fits. And honestly, the Mach Extreme Spinner, actually, I think that's not even that. I think, honestly, out of all things, I think that would actually be like sensible. It's a really expensive coaster, but it would actually be very different from what they have. And it wouldn't be SNS 4D level expensive. So honestly, piggybacking off of that, but yeah, the Mach Rides Extreme Spinner would actually make a ton of sense, I think. So I think that would definitely be a good fit there. But I think that's gonna wrap it up for the stream. So officially. So once again, thank you all for watching and having to go through like the delay of the stream and then the audio issues, but we got it all fixed up. So I really appreciate that. And you had some really good questions, along with some good buy or sell stuff as well. So wanted to mention that. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.